Welcome everybody to
Agreed.
Tabletop Terrors / Run Right Play stream. This is Kiel from Run Right Play. My name is James from Tabletop Terrors. And their headphones didn't work too. We were having that problem. I forgot. And so we are going to talk about the Mecha Hack. The Mecha Hack is a game published by Absolute Tabletop, inspired by the Black Hack, which was inspired by D&D. We can go really far with that, but it is, in my opinion, an evolution of D&D, and then there's the added benefit of boiling it down to a very specific slice of a genre, so to speak, and really like a perfect genre for it. And from that perspective, it became a really lean game. Kiel held it up. I had my copy. Oh, I have it here. Oh, it got moved. Perfect. It's an extremely lean game, but in the best way. It very quickly is a game where the rules aren't very complicated. You sort of choose a few options. You choose
Super streamlined.
Say again.
Super streamlined.
Oh, super
design.
streamlined.
Very
Yes,
sweet.
exactly. So exactly,
Yeah.
And so the book is a few different pilots, a few different chassis, a lot of different equipment. A great, a bunch of world lore. And everything you need to play the game, but it seems very simple based on that concept, as well as it helps a little bit that I was, one of the writers on the book as a part of Absolute Tabletop. I got to work on it with Matt and Barker and Tim, and that's really cool. And from that standpoint, this game is just extremely hackable. So having talked about a progression system on Patreon and having Kiel saying, hey, let's do a stream, and then rereading Mecha Hack and Mission Manual, which turned one years old, the expansion to Mecha Hack, from Absolute Tabletop just recently turned 1 year old, like I think a couple days ago. Very cool too. So we're gonna talk. We're gonna let Kiel talk for a little bit about what he wants to talk about, and then we're gonna ask him relentless questions, so many that he's gonna hate that he agreed to do this. And at some point, Lloyd, he's playing in a game, but at some point he may join us for the discussion as well. He said he had some thoughts, and we'll see what his thoughts are. So, Kiel, what are we gonna talk about today? What do you think?
Well, I love, yeah, I mean, like you said, this whole idea to do this stream and have this conversation was prompted by your progression queue mechanic that you posted on the Tabletop Terrors Patreon. So, yeah, I think that just gave you some cool ideas because obviously you've designed it, or you are designing it to be like universal, right? So that it can sort of be applied to any system, or even whatever potentially used for outside of RPGs, and you can probably adapt it to do some kind of real life tracking and progression of things as well.
Yeah.
It's really like universally adaptable, I think. So, but like you said with Mecha Hack, it's just such a sleek, streamlined system, and like you said, it's so hackable. And it's just like, it's modular, like by nature, it's really modular. Like you pick a pilot, you pick a chassis, and then you pick weapon modules and, like weapon qualities, as well as like offensive, defensive modules. So it's super modular. And I think that like modularity would be a great sort of place to a design space to play in terms of like a play test or a thought experiment for somewhere to apply your progression queue mechanic, because rewards could be a specific, your first sort of reward for one of your progression queues. One of the most obvious things is a module. Like pick a module that you want to get sort of by the end of this session, or whatever it might be, and give that a short fuse, like a short queue to fill up. And that's a great place to start. Same with weapon qualities. Like one of the examples you put in your Patreon post was, I don't think it was for a specific system, but you were talking about like
made
shotgun
up stuff.
upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So piss weapons, and that's probably also what helped my mind go to Mecha Hack.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that's perfect. Like modules already exist there's a bunch in the core book and a bunch more in the mission manual expansion. So that seemed like it. And it's already, for the modules, there's already categories of them. There's offensive, defensive, and utility. And so the progression queue, the way you've designed that is sort of, you can have different types of experience or chits, different tracks basically that you get the points in. So as you do cool defensive stuff during sessions, you could get the chits for in your defensive queue. I'm probably not using terminology very well for that.
No, and that's okay. That's fair, because I admittedly, you are right that what inspired the stream was something that I posted, and then I didn't realize I was doing this, but I basically said, "Hey, Kiel, go ahead and explain the thing that I'm very familiar with and that you were interested in," right? So, but the very simple idea was there's a game called there's a game called Eclipse. It's a board game, and one of my favorite parts about Eclipse is when you do anything in the game, like research or sometimes fighting, sometimes exploration. There are various goals. You get experience, but rather than it being 1 victory point or 5 for this or that, you put your hand in a bag and you pull one out. And you have a certain amount that you can fit on your little board, but you kind of go, some are like 1 experience, they're the worst ones. Some are, 2 through 5 or whatever, and you find out at the time you cash them in, and some are 5, whatever. So, and that may or may not be true, but the important thing, I think that, the important thing is I loved that idea of varying experience, and as well as I didn't like in role-playing games the idea that when you get experience, it's often not a part of the game. It's after the game. It's like homework, Hey, you've leveled up. Do something alone, and you can do it with other people, but I'm obviously being dramatic, but you go away and you level up and you come back and you just have new stuff. And I love the idea, instead of saying, well, why don't we all do it together? And why don't we play out a scene when you get something? Like you said, you get a module. Let's talk about what that looks like. Let's talk about you putting it on. You'll suddenly have a much stronger connection to everything you want. So all of that to say, I wrote a simple progression queue that hopefully will allow us to, while we're playing a role-playing game, constantly have short, medium, and long-term goals that every once in a while, almost like, sort of like how often you would short or long rest, maybe, but even more often than that, something will happen where you get these experience chits, and you are just saving up the money. You're saying, oh, I have, like in Eclipse, I have one that might be worth something a lot later, but we don't know yet. So we're playing a role-playing game, we're fighting, right? We're in Mecha Hack. We're fighting through the garbage heaps. Maybe we're fighting the, the Aeonic Primacy. And I'm giving out chits for, okay, well, you gained experience in fighting. So later, when we do a phase like maybe at a more restful time, you will get to find out how much that experience is worth. You'll go, oh, mine is worth this much. Oh, I rolled on the roll table and I got a 5. And there's some rules to how that works and stuff, And when you do that, then you apply it immediately to stuff you've already decided on. So instead of going, oh, what's my level 3 ability going to be? You've said, oh, when I get experience, I'm going to do this, this, and this, right? It's a queue of things. So stuff to look forward to, rather than, again, flipping it the other way around, where you get the, just like you know what you have, and at level 3 you get this, and it's so static.
Yeah, or at level 3 you spend 2 hours looking through the spell options to pick your new 2 spells,
Another very good example.
Yeah. Which also, again, it's like outside of the gameplay. It's like, well, that's one of the things I really love about this, is that it's, you as the player already know what you're working towards in these various queues, and you can, to whatever degree you are comfortable with or excited about, fold that into the role play. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, you've got a weapon quality that's in your queue, and you can start role-playing that your character, especially if they're like an engineer in Mecha Hack, your pilot is an engineer, then you can start role-playing that they're working on that, and it can be something that's in character. It's an upgrade that they're working on, and it's going to be an exciting, cool new thing that's going to, make your little merc team, give them an edge, because it's going to be this cool arc lightning weapon quality or something like that.
Yeah.
Really use it to immerse in the role play of your character, like it's this experimental new weapon that your character's like trialing out. And then when you finally mechanically fill up that progression queue, then from your crafting chits or from your offensive chits or however we might end up doing it, then you could role play that breakthrough, and it's like, all right, here's the test. It's gonna work this time, says the engineer pilot. Like,
Exactly,
set up
exactly.
the pumpkins for target practice. Check this out,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
you can actually then do it all in character, which is really appealing to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really like. So Cole brings up something interesting, and maybe we'll let it guide us a little. She says, I know some folks plan out their progression in advance. I like looking through the spell options and flexing depending on what's going on in the game, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, that is completely fair. I think what's interesting is that is true of a game more like D&D, but how true would you say that is of something like Mecha Hack? Not to, like, it's a little different as far as, yeah, but what do you think about that? Do you feel like that constraint may come up?
Well, I think it's not quite um, apples to apples the because the leveling up progression that's in Mecha Hack is quite different to in D&D 5e, for example. Like, as you level up, you don't tend to have, like in D&D, like you get your level 3 ability, and then as a fighter at level 5, you get your second attack, and it's I'm just going up because it's, yeah, your pilot abilities don't change. That's kind of static. That's who you are. But as you level up your mecha, you get, I'm just looking up here,
Yeah, yeah, no
leveling
problem.
up. Yeah, so you get more hit points, and you can potentially increase your attributes. And then, okay, yeah, at certain levels, so 3, 6, and 9, you gain a new module. So there is already that. But everything else, like weapon qualities, uh, or um, you know, other uniquely made abilities or
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. Like that stuff that's outside of that scope of getting a new module at level 3, 6, and 9. Um, you could have That's where you can fold in the stuff that isn't already that would otherwise be up to the GM's sort of discretion, as to whether or not they fold that into the campaign.
Yeah.
That's one of the other things I like about the progression queue and the way that you've designed it and presented it, is that and I know you'll know this because some of the tools and stuff that I make are very much like trying to empower players to give them more agency in in the advancement of their character, or more agency in the narrative itself and things like that. So this is, and sort of going back to the example I had before, where you can fold the progression stuff into the narrative and the role play. That's kind of can be a two-way street. Like, if you're the GM, for example, and me as the player, my engineer character, I'm like, cool, my queue, um, I want to, yeah, I'm working towards getting this weapon quality, like arc. I think arc is one of the weapon qualities.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that
Um,
one. That's a really cool one where like it's like electricity, right? Extra sort of.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's
So
the other thing. I wanted to quickly touch on. We are going to talk about changing this role playing game, right? And I think many of you that are with us are very well aware of these concepts, but it's important to mention that we are just going to make up rules, and this game supports it so well because there are so many modules, and we're not changing necessarily fundamental rules of the game. We're replacing them with things that don't necessarily, take away from other parts or affect other parts. We can safely change one part of the game without affecting others. And so that's what we're going to do, I think, is come up with some, because I also like the idea, and maybe we'll, this may be a little just a spoiler for something we can talk about later. I like the idea of separating the chassis and the pilots so that those are abilities you gain as well, right? Maybe you do like you start at level 0, one of those style things. I'm a big fan of that. So
mm,
we can talk about that as well. But you were saying the arc is a really good example of something that somebody might be working toward, in their queue.
yeah, yeah. So and um, you know, without the progression queue mechanic, like basically the way you as the GM might approach that, otherwise would be, um, all right, there'll be a reward after you guys finish this mission. You'll all be able to get a weapon quality, or a consumable or something like that. Or even instead of announcing it up front, it's just, there's the equivalent of the treasure chest that that is sort of at the end of the boss room.
Yeah.
It's like an armory or in an experimental mecha facility or something like that, where at the end of the mission, you guys you all get a weapon quality or a consumable, or there's one weapon quality that someone can pick and fight amongst yourselves who gets that. There's two consumables and there's whatever else. But so that might be how a GM might approach it, currently. But then having this progression queue option instead, like sort of bolting that in that space between there, just gives the players a bit more say up front in exactly what they want to work towards. Might say everyone, like, and Cole said in the chat, like, at what point would you populate your queues or set them up? And I think the intention from your post is, throughout the game, as you fill one, then you can, like, you've got a maximum of 5 queues, I think it was. So would you do it session 0? Like me as a GM, if it was going to be a campaign or even a mini campaign, I might say during session 0, start up with 3 queues, and the length of those queues, like the amount of chits or experience that are needed to fill them in the different categories, we'd figure that out case by case, basically, like depending on, like, I'd say as one of the players, James, like, start with 3 queues. They can be whatever you want, and this goes towards something that you've put in the design as well. Excuse me, I'm very gassy today.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's usually me. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
totally get it.
Coffee, so I'm like, as I'm talking. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be, if I'd say set yourself up in session 0, 3 progression queues. You might pick one as a weapon quality, because that's a cool thing to start with. And then another one might be like something narrative, or something that's bigger in scope. And like, there's not really any reason to say no. It's more cool. Okay, that's just a longer term goal. It's just a longer fuse on the queue. So and using your example that you put in the post within the Facebook event for this stream, I love that. You said first concept you were excited to talk about was like a campaign where the players, player characters all wake up in the trash heap, or they're being underpaid scavengers, and you said you have ideas for a system that allows players to build and prepare their own mech through encounters and random rolls. So rather than starting like you normally do with choosing a pilot, a well-trained pilot, and a chassis, even if it's not a brand new shiny state-of-the-art chassis, it's still like a fully equipped one, even if it's a bit of a bucket of bolts. But yeah, what does it look like without those if you're starting with basically nothing, like as a level 0 character equivalent, and sort of going from there? That would be, I like that idea. So what's your idea with that? Like, because obviously each pilot and each chassis has each pilot definitely has 2 pilot abilities.
Mm-hmm.
One is generally gives you a bonus to specific attributes, and then the other one is like an actual, either a passive or an active ability. And so was your idea, if you're sort of starting from like level 0 as like untrained scavengers who are trying to like cobble together your own mecha, and then learn how to pilot them, like
right.
Would the idea be that you literally start with like with nothing, and like you set up your first queues as like, okay, so if you were the Maverick, you would start with Ace Pilot, which gives you +2 to mobility and +1 to power. So is that how you were thinking? Like those bonuses might be your very first queues.
So that's interesting.
Campaign.
So yeah, I think I'll do a little setup to what I'm imagining. I also want to answer quickly. Cole had said, so at what point would you populate your queue? And like you said, okay, maybe during a session 0. The thing I wanted to touch on there was, I would want to ensure that more than probably any other role-playing game you've ever played, right? And this is the part that's separately trying to solve for, but just let's pretend. The point will be to go more quickly to gain more of those, if that makes sense. To spend less time in each thing so that we can do more things, because we're all aware almost of like the pace of a thing. I'm saying thing, but like imagine a scene in a role-playing game. So the point would be, and like I said, I imagine it like a rest, because it would be like when you go back to your base. Barker's here. What's up, Barker? Everybody say hi to Barker. And so you would, when you go back to base, you know, a shipment of the missiles you ordered might have arrived. And so we're going to play out a scene where they arrive and you break open the crate and, we talk about it. And the next time you use them, it's going to be so much more important. I say all that because you're going to constantly be going through this queue. Some will be longer, and the way it's set up, it's really sort of cleverly handles this. I was influenced by a developer diary from a game called Victoria 3 that's coming out from Paradox Games. They have a build queue that is like this, and it's really clever the way it ends up going. It's not entirely linear. But I say that because you can have long and shorter term things inside of there, and the way it works is you're constantly knocking things out of the queue, right? You're constantly getting a module and getting something and doing something. You're hopefully constantly leveling up. Maybe 3 or 4 times a session, you might be cashing in chits to get stuff. So now, with that in mind, right, say you're going to get 5 or 6 things by the end of a session, a 2.5, 3 hour session. Now consider that everything in the book, like you said, modules included, as well as your +2 and your +1, as well as what your pilot ability is and your chassis ability is, right? So like 4 things already. Imagine it's a menu. Well, you choose. That's what your queue is. You're going, no, everybody can build however they want. It's no longer constrained by the pilot and the chassis. And it's a very beautiful system. Like, I want to say we're changing Mechahack, but not because there's anything wrong with it. It's extremely elegant, but it's so good. It's such a good jumping off point to make even more systems into test systems. But I say that because by breaking all of those things apart, I want somebody to go, you know what? I'm sick of having to roll under this number. I'm finally getting my +2. What's that going to take? Oh, it needs more melee? Okay, well, I'm going to say, I don't know, choose missions that are going to get us more combat instead of exploration, And in that way, like you said, you're like, players are now making decisions based on their goals, which are concrete and mechanical. They're also something to work toward and look forward to. And that is just something I want to do in a role-playing game, I want to unlock something and then shoot it at a guy. Like, when I unlock something in, what's it called? Dwarf Mining Company. I have been so bad recently on stream of video game names. I'm really bad. Deep Rock Galactic, sorry. In that game, I totally lost my whole train of thought with Deep Rock Galactic. But in Deep Rock Galactic, when you get a new gun, you want to play another mission, even if it's the end of the night, because you want to try it out, And I'm like, you get that in role-playing games a little bit, but I think that this kind of system will make you want to come back for the next session more, because you're like, oh, I'm so close to that X-ray gun that's going to vaporize enemies. You know what I mean? Like, it's just becomes so different.
At the end of each session,
you're
either so close to something, or you've just got something and you want to use it.
Exactly. And in that way, you're compelling players to play even more. And that's what's funny is, like, that's good, Sometimes I play D&D and then there's a reason you don't play another session. Like, obviously, there's life happens, but to some degree, when you really want to do something, you do it. But I don't know. If you look at your character sheet and go, oh, we were so close to that. I really like that. I like the idea. Let me say this as almost like a side note. I like the idea of a game that there's not rules in it where you can sit down and build a level 10 character. You have to start at the beginning. And in a sort of silly way, because you could. I can't stop you, right? It would be a role-playing game that is almost like a video game or a board game, where when you play it, well, you start at level 1. And we can go, and if we play to level 3 and then we stop playing, well, we could start off at level 3 if you wanted, but we'd be better off starting at the beginning again. Because then you'll get different modules and have a different... it's almost like... Think of a role-playing game campaign as like a legacy board game that is like 5 or 6 sessions, and it's almost like expected that that's what you're going to do. What do you have? Tell me, please.
Oh, yeah, no, it was just talking about that, it all plays into what Cole's saying in the chat as well. Mecha Hack is so fast-paced, leveling up fast is important, and so
exactly.
Just talking about that sort of play cycle of, playing through level 1 to 3, and then, whether it's, like you say, a computer game, a tabletop game, or anything, that's like when, even in D&D 5e, obviously, like, it's the leveling up curve, like the pace of character advancement and getting cool new stuff to use is, it's most fast-paced in the lower levels. And so this is, sort of a different way to work with that, I suppose, or a way to keep that same type of curve. Oh, I need to do it that way in the, the reverse. Keeping that, but having it way more sort of granular, so that it's just more like more instant gratification, I suppose, and more like regular gratification along the way, right?
Yes, and more
getting
so.
The chits all throughout the session is like,
And knowing, being excited about what they could be, because now, just again, another Matt's here too. Everybody say hi to Matt Click, creator of the Mecha Hack, and the reason we're all here today, father of us all. So going back to what we were going to talk about, let's brainstorm. Nothing is sacred. Let's talk about what that crawling out of the trash heap looks like, right? Because just to go through it a little bit, because I also want to give people an idea of how you would get an experience shit, and also get an idea myself, so I haven't really thought this through much, so we're going to kind of figure it out right now. But imagine that you start the game, you have your character sheet, you started with the stat array from Mission Manual. You could have rolled as well, but I'm thinking stat array. But you don't have a mech. There's also on-foot stuff. Maybe you even do some on-foot stuff to start, Maybe you make a few on-foot checks to sneak into the place. But,
Definitely.
the junkyard, the salvage yard. Yes, please.
We're definitely like teens in the Terran Collective. We're like young freedom fighters, right? Like,
yes.
Fits so perfectly.
Exactly, and that's
we're
a good point.
Stuck on this backwater moon or something, and we need to get our way off, join the fight.
And we're like garage mechanics putting together mechs when really, and I imagine like the people that make mechs are like the racing teams. That's like ungodly amounts of money, are spent on the engineering and stuff, and we are mashing it together from trash, and we're gonna try to do the same thing. It's like we are crazy, but that's part of it. We're scrappy, and that's what we're about. So we got an inside contact. We sneak into the junkyard, basically, and we have like a mecha chassis, like parts built onto it and other parts not, and we can get in there. It barely powers up, but it only has armor in some parts, no weapons at all to speak of, minimal power. We would need to probably walk it somewhere and get power into it, so it's kind of like it's our project car. But as always tends to happen in these situations, suddenly something happens where maybe somebody discovers it, or something causes you to be in the scrapyard and you have to climb into it, and now it's ride or die. I don't know. I know I'm not using that right, but it fits perfectly. You are now going to pilot this shoddy, barely pieced together mech, but now you have to go get power. Hopefully, locate some sort of weapon that you can, strap on and fire. Bullets probably for that weapon. Maybe you need even something to attach that weapon or those armor plates to you. And all the while, I imagine there are creatures in this salvage yard. There are other people to contend with. There are different challenges. You have to hold things up and roll your reactor die, on just barely no reactor. And so all of that to say, now knowing that, I don't know, where do you want to start? We have the progression queue that sets it up a little bit. Does that give you an idea of like how I can see it working?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And let's just clarify this detail here. I love how that was framed, and it seems like, because initially I imagined, there's 4 characters that they each are sort of putting together their own mech, but I actually love that this is like one shared mech, and they're all going to have to initially sort of pilot it together. If it's mission is like getting this one, and whether that's because they are all working on their own smaller component mechs, and then they can sort of join together into one bigger one or whatever. I'm sort of going down the rabbit hole a bit there.
I know, but I see now, no, because I hadn't... I honestly was almost abstracting away the people and imagining that everybody would have their own, that they were building. But I like that way better. A million. Because now we get to use the on-foot stuff, and we can find things for all of the players to do while maybe one person is piloting. And maybe they're fighting somebody while other stuff is going on. So I love that. So thank you, because I wasn't thinking that at all.
page 70 in the mission manual is on foot skills. I'm just bringing it up to refresh my
Awesome.
refresh my
Okay.
memory. Yeah, so that would absolutely be where we'd start because the pilots would be in there. So I can imagine as well, like the aspiring engineer character would be like, it's not ready yet, like.
Yeah, they would know the
aspiring
most.
commander would be like, I don't care, we need to get it up and running, and we need to get it the hell out of here. Otherwise it's going to get destroyed, or we'll never get off this damn stinking rock. So yeah, the on foot skills would be perfect for initially, and so because basically we're looking at how, I think the first sort of thing we need to figure out would be what are the categories of chits. In your example,
Oh, okay,
you
yeah.
have melee, ranged, and crafting, and magic as a with an asterisk if that's relevant. I think that was more as like if using it in a fantasy sort of thing in general.
Yeah.
Oh no, even sci-fi, even this. So, do we think those categories? Because I like those groupings. I like those categories. Do you think they would fit well? Yeah, because it doesn't have to tie directly to, the groupings of modules, for example, like offensive, defensive, and utility. For the chits, it can still be melee, ranged, crafting, and
I do like that.
Probably not. Would magic work? Or?
Well, exactly. Let's be more deliberate, because what I discovered after doing that, and some of your questions is, so what we actually need those to be, and this is something that we'll have to come up with for Mechahack, is we need those to be that things that players are going to do and that they're going to want to do. And so in a sense, I picked cheap ones because combat happens in a lot of role-playing games. But I would rather focus on, if possible, not necessarily killing stuff, because then it tends to be just killing creatures or killing enemies. And I'm like, there are going to be people you fight, but there can also be trash falling on you and creatures attacking you, but it's about scaring them off because they have babies. More of an encounter than like all right, well, you have X amount of attacks and you have to swing this many times and kill it. It's like, no, you need to ask questions about what's happening around you to solve the problem, right? So saying that, it's almost like what I want is for players to be looking for experience chits. Something we say sometimes in a game is, when we're designing a game, we'll say, okay, well, why wouldn't a player always use their best stat? Wouldn't they always try to find a way? And some games have leaned on that. They go, yes, okay, players are going to always use their intelligence if it's highest, so they're going to explain to the GM how that works. Well, I'm very intelligent, so I'm going to explain to the merchant how, their thing is not very valuable, whatever. If we're almost leaning into that, we're saying, okay, no, look around. Where can you find experience? What's in your queue? So all of that to say, we almost need to pinpoint, okay, I would love for there to be an exploration one, but we'll need to figure out kind of what that looks like, Maybe there's a salvage one. I like that instead of like crafting. So like the salvage is like finding parts, And there doesn't have to be 4. There could be 2. There could be 3. What do you think?
I'm just thinking there are 4. I know it doesn't have to be 4, but the attributes, power, ability, system, and presence. That might be the simplest way to go. Just thinking if there's a downside to that, or if that's like too obvious.
So my big thing is, I would be concerned with the same kind of thing where if it was D&D, imagine you'd go, okay, well, what's our constitution roll, right? I don't have that example quick on Mechahack, but in a sense, it's like, I see what you mean. But let's say there's one for combat. You know what? We're going to figure it out on the fly, so to speak. And what we're going to do is we're going to make them sound cool and then talk about ways that we could do that, right? Because I want one to be like subterfuge. Like, if you mess up the enemy somehow, if you and you'll go, hey, is there anything I could sabotage here? You know what? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, let's brainstorm it. I want that question. So, like I said, combat is a solid one. Because we're going to do modules, I don't know that we'll do ranged and melee. I don't think it has to be separate, right? And again, first draft, I don't know, matters much. I think salvage, I like that one, right? Just for like finding parts, if that's all right.
Totally, yeah. Because like you say, we can have, it could be 2, it could be 4, it could be 8. It could also be not a finite list,
And yes.
Sort of defining which like type of XP you need to fill each queue as you create each queue. You can be like, all right, cool. So yeah, like that one might need 50 crafting and let's say 30 subterfuge and maybe also 10 renown, or just something that that the GM comes up with on the you can, as the GM and the players, you can play around with new categories during play as well.
Exactly. Imagine one that is like a quest for this specific planet you're on. Hey, any pelts you bring. I mean, again, we're talking more like a role-playing game, video game now, but it's like, well, no, there's a progression queue for if you get X amount of this kind of chit, which you get out by going on hunting expeditions, which the GM allows, can put story inside there, as well as basically you're going out as a player because you want something. The GM gets what they want, and you get a place to kind of tell a story. What happens when you went out there hunting? Then you still get to bring that back along with the story, go back home, turn in the chits, subterfuge, the one attribute that none of my players took.
Big mistake.
So yes, I like those three. If you wanted to have a fourth one, can you think of one, or do you think we should split combat? What do you think? Like, what do you want players to unlock? What do you want them to spend? I don't know.
I think it's like there's combat, there's subterfuge, and these are more or less different names for the 4 attributes, which I think works well. Like,
right? Yeah.
Combat, subterfuge, like tech. So that could be like engineering stuff, crafting stuff. Because
you know what? How about engineering?
Engineering.
That feels like the Mechahack word, if that's all right. Like the Mecha word. So engineering,
totally.
I like that. Because that could be like upgrades and stuff.
As an example of like hacking into an enemy security system or something, but that could be subterfuge. That's probably more subterfuge.
Okay, yeah.
Which, because that's always the part of this exercise. It's like when you're coming up with stats for a game or categories for things. It's like, all right, where's the overlap and where are the gaps? I think engineering makes it specific enough that even though we're like a ragtag bunch of kids in the Terran Collective freedom fighters, like it's still it is engineering. If you're making a giant robot like work,
exactly.
It's engineering.
Yes. Yeah, right. You're like, no matter, at the end of the day, there's a reactor.
Still, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think combat, subterfuge, engineering, and then
so we had salvage as
like
well. Was one.
Salvage, yeah, like salvage, and then the one like the one that fits into the presence type thing in terms of like, because I'm looking at the on-foot skills, so the sub skills for presence are coax and intrigue. So that's like deceiving, persuading, negotiating. Like I think especially while we're in this early stage and the characters are on foot and there is a lot more focus on that type of thing, it might be worthwhile having something like that.
I like it.
Depending on the situation, you might need someone to distract or smooth talk the guards, or like espionage maybe is the
So what if that's a group queue? What if there's like it's almost like
we haven't talked about that yet.
Exactly. And so we're moving a little because DJ Hester says intrigue, and then that is important, right? And to some degree, we're getting into questions about, well, what's your Mechahack game about? How much intrigue is there going to be? Those things, not to what's the word? Not to discount them, rather, but to try and keep it a little more on take, so to speak. I feel like if that's a group sort of queue, but think of it more like reputation, because there's also reputation rules in Mission Manual. But imagine that the presence one is all about reputation, because that's sort of the important thing. Now, I could already see the mechanical things happening with, I rolled, and, I have a high presence, but I also separately have achieved things in the queue that matter. Right now we have a thing we can look at and go, you did save the Terran Dominion. You can bring that up to this person. You know what I mean? That will hold water with them. But it's more mechanical than it's ever been, because you have written on your sheet something that you've already previously unlocked, like a list of things that the people have done. It's like your renown ledger. And so this might not be the place for that, but maybe that's the place for it, because if you go subterfuge or intrigue, that's more like it's full of those things. You know, in effect, doing it that way, I'd like to think would allow a group to decide what goes in the queue, and in that way decide, well, are we doing intrigue-y more stuff, or are we like the paladins who are saving everybody and we're just, you know, it's more like our renown and how much people recognize us and how much bad people fear us, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I think Cole had another good thought there. What about basing it on the three pillars of gaming: social, combat, and exploration? Which I like. I like the idea of that. I think the crafting side of it could maybe fit into exploration, but maybe it needs to be its own thing. But I think that's a good line of thought to go down. But I think the way I see this working well would be like really working for what we're trying to achieve would be having like, I know I was saying you can have as many, it doesn't have to be a finite list, and it definitely doesn't, but I think having a core of the categories which are sort of broad, like combat, you know, combat I think is a no-brainer. Yeah, subterfuge, maybe just having subterfuge as espionage instead or something like that, so that kind of encapsulates
I think that's fair,
as well as the sort of social aspect. So like combat, espionage, and engineering or crafting, even something like that. Just having those sort of three big things as like the backbone of what you can use. Like pretty much all of your queues will have at least one of those that you know that you need an amount of, and then everything else can sort of be case by case. Like you were saying, the example of, you know, in a particular queue, it might be, all right, so let's actually use a real example.
Yeah, like, perfect.
We've got our kids in the junkyard, and, you know, their mech that they've been cobbling together in secret. One of the other kids has just like discovered it, and he's told them he's going to rat them out, and so they're like, all right, we got to bust this thing out. I know it's not ready, but we got to fire it up. We got to finish the reactor. Let's say that's like the thing. We need to finish the reactor. And then we can at least get it moving and go hide it somewhere else. Like that's the first little mission, you know? Like,
yeah, perfect.
We have this obstacle we need to overcome. And so the way to solve that is getting the reactor up and running. And so, all right, what do we need for that? And we've kind of danced around it, but I don't think we've explicitly discussed yet the difference. Like the idea with this progression queue thing is it can have individual characters will have their own queues for personal progressions, but then it's also a way, and like DJ said in the chat, it's like reminiscent of progression tracks in Ironsworn and Starforge, and Cole mentioned as well, it's like reminiscent of progression clocks in Blades in the Dark, and Apocalypse World, things like that. So, which for those, yeah, like you can have your individual ones, but definitely, I know that it'll be a group track, right? It'll be a group queue for get the reactor up and running. And it's like, all right, let's talk about what does that look like, including the GM in the conversation, right? Like how many chits of which type, how much experience of which type do we need? And here's the thing, in my mind at least, for how this works and how it presents it is, yes, some of the like boxes to fill basically in the queue for getting this reactor up and running, this group queue, some of them are like experience based, but others are like resource based. It works the same way, it's just different terminology, but it's like, all right, yeah, we need, and it depends how granular you want to get, like for what's just seasoned to taste, right? It's like, cool, all right, could keep it simple, and yep, we need 10 engineering, depending on the scale of how big your queues are and how many points you expect to be giving out or whatever. Or say, say it'll be like 30, we need 30 engineering chits. It could just be that, let's go, and then yeah, you know, we'll figure out how to play that out and how what the exercises and the tasks look like for the players to go off and do their thing. Or you could just say, all right, there's that queue. Here's the lay of the land, what the junkyard looks like. Here's your your timer, you know, it's midnight now, and you know that at sunrise, you're going to get ratted out. So, you know, you have your little sort of ticking clock in that regard, but set the scene and then put it to the players. What does your character do? What are they doing? How are they helping get the reactor up and running, you know? And as we all know, as GMs, like, what your players come up with will be great. So you pose the problem, not the solution, and then see what they come up with, and that's fun. So you could just have that one, like, slot to be filled, you know, 30 engineering chits, or you could say, okay, there's 30 engineering chits, which is kind of universal, like, category, but there's also, and sorry, this whole line of thought is from your awesome suggestion of having salvage as one of the categories, and I'm thinking English language is fun. Salvage could mean specifically actual material.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yes.
Rather than, like, experience in salvaging, it could mean
yes,
actual resources, you know? And again, it goes back to that video game style of things where it's like, you've got this abstracted queue to fill up of the 30 engineering progress, you know, or experience for getting the reactor up and running, but you also need, you know, 10 chits in metal, or what's the cool metal called?
Oh man, I should know this sort of thing.
Someone will tell us in the chat before.
They will absolutely, because I'm like, well, you know, I don't remember exactly where I would find it directly.
I know. Anyway,
I know, right?
But yeah, you can just, it's like, yeah, so it could just be salvage or parts or metal or whatever you want to call that part of the queue, you know.
Yeah.
And you might.
Cole says unobtainium, right? That's the joke one, yeah.
Unobtainium, yeah.
That's the one, yeah. Scrap or lodium? Okay, yes. I think that's it. Yeah, lodium.
Scrap or lodium, yeah.
Should have known that. That's my bad, guys.
But I know lodium is like fancy and expensive, so it's probably unlikely we'd find some there, unless it's literally like one. You know, it's like
tiny amounts.
30 engineering, 20 scrap, and 5 lodium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that, and it's like, it's not something that you'd likely find in the junkyard, but we need it to get the reactor up and running, so yeah, it's on the list. So, hey.
What's up? Lloyd's here. How's it going, Lloyd? He just finished a game. He was playing something. Probably not Mecha Hack, but that's okay.
I won, yep. I beat all the other players.
Yeah, did you win? Yep. I didn't think about that.
Yep. Beat all the other players and kick the door in here to tell you it's lodium.
That's it, lodium. I know, right? Oh, man, right? That's the perfect timing.
Unbelievable.
Couldn't have planned that better for when his
Didn't you write a bunch of missions for this? Unbelievable.
That's the man. And I just read it again too, you know, and I'm like, so nope. Oh man.
I hope you're seeing this map. Which one was
yes, yeah, right.
Remember when the next Kickstarter rolls around.
So I wanted to go back, Kiel, just a little bit. We were talking about a lot of things, Lloyd, but there's mostly this progression queue, and we're changing sort of the way that you constantly level up and gain things. Kiel, what I wanted to say about the idea of having the experience the way we did, like you said, salvage can be either, and there's combat, and there's espionage, and there's engineering. I, again, like I said, want players to look for ways to get these things. Like you said, you go, okay, we're not writing an adventure necessarily that is, in order to power the reactor up, you have to find 4 batteries. Instead, it is, in order to power a reactor up, you have to finish this queue. So instead, you ask the players, okay, well, what do we need to do? Well, you know what? Maybe it's this kind of new experimental mech, and they have this hybrid, you know, where it's a reactor and something else, and we need to find biofuel. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. Just brainstorm something, make something up. But suddenly, and you can have lists of those, right? Different things you might need for the different chits, but instead it just becomes a more modular thing where you can pick and choose your menu. Lloyd, my son, my bride, my absolute. Matt loves him better than us. That's okay. We knew it already.
Always has.
But so that sort of thing where not only is it changing the progression of the game, but the goal is that it's also changing the way the players and the GM look at the game when they're playing, because it will hopefully stop players from going, okay, well, what's next? Or do I walk up to the thing? Or do I do... And this is a lot less of an issue in Mecha Hack, if I'm being honest. But so this is less of that problem, of solving that problem. But the idea is that I like the idea that players are saying, hey, I want my mechanical thing. Where can I find it narratively? You know, like you're just incentivizing the behavior you want to see, and I like that in progression. I also really love progression. So, Lloyd, you're kind of coming into the middle of this cold, have really no idea what we're talking about.
Nope. Can you tell me what a progression queue is? I don't even know what that is. Yeah.
Fair. So we had this idea. I had an idea on Patreon, and Kiel commented, and we were talking about it, where rather than just choosing your level ups, you know, between sessions, for example, you constantly have a queue, say in something like Civ, you know, where there's a queue of things, but it's not linear. Depending on what you do, you get different resources, and then you later cash those resources in, and they go toward your queue. So instead of getting just your level 3 ability, you're going, oh, well, I have a new module coming up. And when that module comes up, because you've collected your chits, in this case, you know, we're in the junkyard and we found it, you know. You found the minigun, but now you need a little bit more of another resource to attach it. So you did the 10 salvage that you needed, but the next tick, you know, the next time you get to do that, you're going to put it on and you're going to have that gun. So the next fight, you know, and we also get to have a scene about sort of each of those things because they kind of come up as all together as a group rather than just between sessions when we're leveling up ourselves. So it's really sort of a generic system to allow you constant level ups through the game, really more like a video game. You gained enough XP just in the middle of something, you pause the game and go, all right, what thing am I going to pick? What's my new one, you know? Instead, we flip it a little bit where you've chosen your new one, but you choose the new one you want to get. So you have constantly things to look forward to. So all of that to say, we were discussing what it was like to maybe be rebels that have really no business making mechs, scrapping one together in a salvage yard, and unexpectedly we have to get it out of here. And so kind of using that system to go, okay, well, if we need salvage for the reactor, I'm going to make up, brainstorm, okay, how could I get some of that? Well, maybe, you know, you could find an old other chassis. And we get to tell the story, and I get to inject, you know, narrative into that. And if I want to thread something in later, foreshadowing, maybe you'll see a little bit of a creature that's going to be an infestation later. We're just playing a role-playing game at that point. But it's all started with going, okay, how can I unlock my gun? How can I unlock another armor point? That's really hard. I want a better reactor die. You know, and like, I'd love a player looking at that and going, all right, I want to go talk to that person because I have a reason to. That just doesn't happen in role-playing games. So hopefully that's some idea of what we're talking about. What do you think? Or do you have any questions? Is also fair.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's too complicated for Mecha Hack.
That's fair. That's fair. This is not
Straight out
Mecha
the
Hack.
gate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is not.
Because
Yes. Yeah.
The thing that's awesome at Mecha Hack is you can teach it in 30 seconds and play it in 10 minutes, right? That's what's so great about it. And so, like, in a mech setting, totally, I agree. I really love, if you've played, what you call it, Battletech, is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah, Battletech. Yeah, I haven't played the pen and paper.
The video game.
The video
is what I'm
game,
talking about. Where you're constantly needing little bits and you need, like, this resource to do this thing, and then you're slowly upgrading things along the way, right? Instead of just like, wham, here's a huge increase to your stuff. You're, like, gradually increasing your stuff the whole time. And I do like that as an experience. But it would be hard you'd have to have, I don't know, like a flowchart or something, right? You're talking about a top
it would
tree,
be
basically. Right?
And
like,
it would be like a menu. I mean, you'd have a list of like modules. You know, it would effectively be more succinct than it is now, if anything. You know? Mm-hmm. Again, we did cover a lot of this, and it's worth covering a lot of it again, especially now that you're here. We love Mecha Hack, but absolutely my ideas for changing it, change it from being Mecha Hack. I have other ideas that we haven't even touched on that I'm like, I would like to play a game where we go, no, let's just turn that knob up. And Mecha Hack is so modular that it's so easy for that. But I completely agree that I'm like, we are injecting something that is not Mecha Hack into this game for sure, you know. And we're aware of that. Yeah.
The progression queue thing is system agnostic. It's it's its own thing. But yeah. And so this was just an example, like sort of the first one that came to mind from the way some of the examples that James put in the original post in Patreon, like one of the like hypothetical progression queue upgrades that he had in there was like what's it called, a shotgun choke upgrade, or like fist weapons, things like that, which just made me think of Mecha Hack and you know, literally the modules that you can get and the consumables, and it's just a easy place to sort of start talking about how you might put this into practice in a system, you know, because it's not a game in itself, it's a progression subsystem, I guess. Although you could make a very lightweight game with this at its core. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at is like, it's like picking a speciality or like a prestige class. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be the minigun prestige class. One of my options is I'm gonna get a big ass minigun that's gonna kick ass. But to do that, I need to first get all the other things, right? It's like a sort of flowchart or a tech tree, right? That kind of thing. Is that the?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I didn't even really think that far. I really just imagined like the modules were in a list. And even, for example, we were talking about pilot abilities. Like, start level 0, you have nothing, and something you can unlock is, well, you get a +2 to whichever one you choose. You know, and in a sense, maybe based on the abilities you choose, that's what pilot you have, right? Because that's really what the abilities are, so to speak. And by doing it that way, it also becomes more like a build system where it's almost like you're taking it slower, where instead of starting with your whole thing, it's like doing one thing and doing another thing and doing another thing. Not instead of, but as well as, of course. But we were talking about something else, and I wanted to touch on that, and I personally got too far away from it. What were we just talking about before that? You mentioned prestige classes. Do you know what the biggest problem I have with prestige classes? You gotta be, like, level 16 to start. Like, most prestige classes be like, all right, after you've played for, like, 3 years, now you can begin to get the stuff. Like, I'm talking, like, 3.5 especially. But all of that to say that I didn't consider it, but what you're describing would be almost more like builds. Because there's something to be said about when we break it apart like this, there are a few little rules where there's heavy armor, light armor, two-handed weapons. There are these things in role-playing games, and I have some ideas for that, and we don't necessarily have to mess with those now, but the idea is it would be such a way where you could build whatever you wanted. Suddenly, if you think of the game this way, and I have other ideas for this too, I'm going to say that a lot, but it's no longer needs to be balanced in the way players expect that it needs to be balanced, because if you have a bunch of cool weapons, I'm just going to throw more stuff at you, right? You're going to want more experience, you're going to go out there, and I'm going to keep facing you with more and more difficulty. It's how every game works, right? You get better stuff at more difficult enemies, but suddenly it feels like, I don't know, I didn't think much about this, more of a give and take relationship than it often is with the GM, because I also have ideas to make it where it's not up to the GM when you stop having encounters and you can rest again. Let's put it that way, right? Instead of a random encounter, I go, no, we're going to roll dice until you're safe. It's not up to me. Oh my gosh, again? You know what I mean? Like, it might be more difficult because I put you in a more difficult area, but I don't know. It's these little separations, I feel like, that make it where a player feels more like they're unlocking things slowly and getting things, rather than I went away, I got a minigun, and I came back, and now I have a minigun. Like I mentioned earlier, I want it arriving at the base and us breaking it open and, getting it on the mech. Matt says, the other thing with prestige classes is you had to, like, set out to have a specific one because of the requirements. You had to start building toward it, like, level 1.
Yeah.
This would be more like as you go, but there might be where I'm like, well, I want these 4 things because at this level, now we can do this,
I think we're looking at, like, everybody starts as, like, a mech, a guy in a mech, right?
Yes.
Like a dude in a mech.
We even just dudes, not even with mechs. We even went one
sure.
lower than that, like, yeah.
Just like some people, and then you work your way towards a mech, and then when you have the mech, you can be like, okay, there are like 3 different armor paths I can go down. I can be like a heavy, or like a scout, or I can be like somewhere in the middle. There are like 10 different weapon loadouts that I can go down, but I have to work on them. Like, I can't just decide I've got this and this, and this is
Yeah, it's not just buying it, yeah.
Yeah, if I want to end up with like a rail gun, then I have to start with like a rifle or something, right? You got to work your way up to it and keep improving the thing you have or whatever. And then you're locked out of other things maybe as you go, right? Like, okay, I've gone for like the heaviest possible armor, so I can't have the lightest possible armor. It's one of the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
I think I'll just clarify as well. I know you, just to make sure we're sort of on the same page, is because I know you were asking, like, so it's kind of like a tech tree, Lloyd, and it's not in terms of having predefined, like you were saying, flowchart or tech tree. Like, it's the idea is that there won't be predefined prerequisites for anything. It's more like with the railgun example, it might just be that that's a longer track. Like, you just have to fill more things to get that, or because I mean, this is one of the reasons why we picked Mechahack for this example as well, because there's weapon qualities. Everything is so deliciously modular. It's like you've got your pilot, your mech, modules, consumables, weapon qualities, and that's, I think, it. And there's like this delicious like combination of things, and so that's literally a weapon quality, right? Is like plasma or like whatever. That's how you would get your railgun, right? And so it's like, cool, I want to make that one of my personal progression cues. Like, I want a railgun. So cool. All right, how many points of which type is it going to take to get that? You know? And I think it's obviously like case by case, and so it would be a matter of like this might just be my GM style, but I would think I wouldn't really see a situation where there would need to be player says I want to have X railgun, whatever it might be. I think with the way I envision the system working, it's obviously still quite wet cement in that, but it would just be, yeah, it wouldn't be like multiple cues in a certain progression. It's like, it is a progression thing, so it's just one cue that would have, you know, instead of needing 100 crafting points, it might need, you know, 100 crafting points plus 50 combat points and whatever else, you know. It's just like a longer queue or a more complex queue or both.
Now, yeah,
is kind of how I would approach it. But again, it's, I guess, season to taste, right?
Exactly. With that said, I think that's the beauty, because to be honest, Lloyd, I didn't consider that level, but it makes sense. You're describing a tech tree with prerequisites, but the tech tree is, in this case, entirely separate from the progression queue, so to speak, right? Because whether you were playing the Mecha Hack with this queue or the regular way, you could make it so that you had to level up weapons. You know, you had to get this before you could get this, before you could get this, you know, like a tree. I just didn't consider that, but that is the beauty. As you said, Kiel, I was imagining it more like write what's in front of you, but earlier I did mention, you know, short, medium, and long-term goals, and I think, Lloyd, that's a really good idea, because another thing I talked about was I want it to be more like a role-playing game that isn't like you can show up and make a level 10 and have level 10 abilities. Not that you can't, I can't stop you, right? But it's less of that kind of game, where more it's like, no, I want to level up and get to that, and what do I have here as a group? It's, again, I don't know, it's just a different style, I suppose, that I'm used to, but putting it that way, more like I didn't really consider the trees, but on a longer campaign, I love that. But basically finding like ways to solve for the problems of prestige classes, yeah.
The way my design brain works is always like, okay, what does it look like in practice? I'm really, really bad at this theorizing, because I'm like, okay, but shut up, let's
exactly, let's do it.
Yeah. I'm like, no, we're gonna make it, and then we'll see if it's good before we go and theorize further, right? So I can get a bit stuck down in the making of it and less in the idea of it, right?
Totally,
and you know that shit. Like that happens every time we try and make something. You're like, and what about this concept? I'm like, okay, but what does it look like?
Exactly. You know, gotta get to the implementation.
Like the 2 different types of ADHD, like
not
types, but you know, like like you need to see it in action, and I'm like, theorizing and definitely working in the abstract. But I think because we got like another hour or so, I reckon we can do a bit of like an actual sort of practice or a little hypothetical scenario. I actually, because again, this is like the way that you've got this design with the progression cues, it's totally scalable, like as big or as small, as fast or as long as you want, right? Just giving a shout out to the Mecha Dome, Nate's awesome like arena tournament campaign thing that he's been running over on the Mecha Dome is like, it's literally like, if you haven't seen it, it's like been this knockout tournament that's been happening over many months, where there's 2v2 matches of 2v2, and it's like a knockout, so it's a tournament. During the matches, it's awesome. They're using Roll20 and got these cool maps, and part of the like rules of the matches is that they have these modules pop up at certain increments on the map, so you can go and collect them if you want, and different colors. There's like green for utility, and there's red and blue for offensive and defensive modules, which are already categories of module in the game. So we could maybe that's the little scenario test we can do here, something that kind of concept, but instead of the modules popping up at randomized locations at certain times during the match, they can be progression cues, right? That are literally just like 5 or 10. So it's like, and it's just abstracted. It's like, when I make an attack or successfully spend armor points or whatever it might be to gain combat chits. Because again, and this I don't know if this this might be a part that you don't know yet, Lloyd, but like when you get the chits, it's like you cash them in later. It's like the chit could be a D6, and then when you cash it in, you roll it to see whether you get between 1 and 6 actual XP to spend. So if there's something that costs 5 to unlock a module, which you can abstract as, oh hey, yeah, I found it. It raised from a platform next to me on the map, but actually I just unlocked it and it appeared on me. However you want to flavor it, but we could do something like that maybe where, yeah.
So I have an idea. I want to pitch you guys. Yeah.
We can dial it in, but yeah.
So I want to pitch you if this is okay. I love that idea because I think that was 2v2 like PvP tournaments, right? So think of it like this is a silly example, I feel like, for what we're talking about, but think of it like the trials they had to go through in the Goblet of Fire in Harry Potter. And I say that because they were so separate and so, I don't know, they're so varied. It's such a good, interesting subset where the first one they had to do, I think they had to get an egg from an arena that people were sitting in where there was a dragon. But they were able to go anywhere in the world, right? Like, I'm imagining sort of a mecha, think of like a reality competition, but also we're fighting the rebellion or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's a serious thing, but it is absolutely being recorded and broadcast for entertainment, And so some part of it potentially is us going on missions, or, the players going on missions to planets, and there are drones following them, and they're doing various things that are basically like they can be any sort of mission. But they get points, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a framing device for missions that allows you to comment on them and constantly also give different people. So instead of it being PvP, effectively, you're saying, well, what is the best it's like a Hearthstone, like arena run. You're like, all right, well, you made your 2 mechs. How many things can you get through? That sort of thing. And like you said, now you have the progression queues and different things, but you're flying to different planets, and maybe between, I imagine it's like like F1 teams, where you have like a team of people and they're constantly working to make new stuff and work on it, but it's like a 24-hour race, like Le Mans, where for that stint, it's go, go, go. You're just barely patching it up, you don't have enough time. So basically, yes, it's sort of this long-term thing where people are trying to perform their best in these mechs and put them together, and you constantly get more things and can level up, and I don't know. That can also mean fighting people, because again, we're in a war, so what do you think? Is that a reasonable framing device for what we're trying to do?
It's like a war TV show.
It's a war TV show.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a really good point. Yes, okay, yeah, perfect. Like war reality show.
Today on Strike Team, that sort of thing.
Yes. And so, yes, you're basically can be sent to do all manner of different things, but just like you said, Kiel, similar to the 2v2, but here it's like, okay, well, you start out, with something very simple. Maybe not at 0, but you start out with a simple mech, with just light armor, there's no heavies. Maybe everybody has the same chassis. That's pretty simple, same reactor die. And then slowly you go through and there are different power-ups. But we can abstract those to say, no, well, you found, a mech that had a little bit something left in it. Like maybe there's just a way that you can like suck power from stuff on in different areas. So you're able to refill your reactor and stuff, But you're also performing, I guess, is the important thing. I don't know why, but I wanted to add that layer where you have to do all these different missions, but it's not just like, yeah, there's other people, other stuff tied up in it, if that makes sense. So, like you said, you want to know what it looks like. So it kind of looks like that. How does that hit you? Do you have any questions? Do you want to, do you want to go even deeper? Like, how do the players start?
This is because I always think sort of boringly realistically. People are upgrading and changing their mechs in session.
Yes, in session. Yeah. So in this case, yeah.
So it's like you like step on the thing and it like it's happening in.
Yes, actually, I was just watching. Go ahead.
My boring ass brain is like, okay, well, you find the tech, then you got to go back to the workshop, and then it takes them 2 to 6 weeks to like apply the new armor to your mech, and that's it.
And so,
like, okay, no. This is like StarCraft, where like you
it's like something just comes across space and like attaches to you and upgrades on you.
Gotcha.
It's like,
like and think of it like I said, like if you are familiar at all with racing, sometimes they'll like blow a whole engine. And they're like, all right, well, we have to race tomorrow. We have to take it out of this one and put that in, and then we have to make sure it works right. You know what I mean? And so, like, absolutely, it's like a race against time, but I see what you mean. Like, yeah, there was I think it's called Maddox. There was a really cool mech anime I was watching recently, and it was like, they climbed in, and it was like Iron Man things. They walked in, and it put all their stuff on them. They, like, picked their load out, and then they were, like, shot out of it like a cannon. It was so awesome. And I love that, right? So I was imagining that perfect thing, that Iron Man. So, yeah, so it's an Iron Man situation.
It's your classic Iron Man situation, guys. Yeah,
it's been long enough.
Typical Iron Man.
We've all been there.
But so I imagine it's like a GM would run, and I'm just making this up, right? It doesn't have to be this, but for some reason a GM would run a pair of people through it, and it would be like there would be a score of some sort. You know, where it'd be like, well, you did X this many, you know, you survived this many, it's like at the end of a match of a game, you're like, well, I got this many points, even though it was a co-op game, you know? I can compare my points to how well you did. We didn't fight each other, but I got more points or less points than you, you know? Not that it has to be that way, but like you said, that it's like the 2v2, but it's a PvE instead of a PvP. We can just make a PvP
totally.
too. But.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, like, because we got, another 40-ish minutes. Like, do we want to bumble our way through a little scenario like that now?
I think that'd be cool.
We don't have to, you know, switch on the improv roleplay too much necessarily, depending how on board we are. But yeah.
Yeah, I think we just come up with we'll come up with the easy ideas. You know, it doesn't have to be anything.
No
pressure.
I reckon keep it simple. Like like have we in terms of the chits needed, like the categories of chits needed to fill any progression cues, like keep it as the simple, like the abstracted things, like it's combat, espionage, engineering, you know, like the broadest abstracted categories, I think. And
yeah, so
let's just like starters, two pilots with that premise. Like, I like the sort of co-op idea in terms of like, maybe we're competing, but like, unless we both get to the end, then nobody wins. Like something like that, you know?
Yeah,
it's like a PvE type thing.
Like a Deep Rock Galactic.
Like we're working together, but it's a friendly rivalry kind of thing. It's like, you know, whoever comes out on top gets the sponsorship, but we both need to finish to actually, for anyone to get anything.
Oh, yeah, and that's a good point, because specifically when I talked about the points, it was more not among the two people, but the GM would next week run to other people and we would compare, you know, more like American Ninja Warrior. That.
That tournament side of things.
And I understand, because Cole said something similar. Finally, someone could win an RPG, and there's a chance she understood it the same. I realized that was in there.
Yeah, because the thing is, if we were competing in the mission, my first action would be to kill Kiel.
Exactly.
Right?
No.
All the points.
Exactly. Yeah. But so Lloyd, basically, I think that's perfect, Kiel. Lloyd. So we have 4 different like categories you can get XP in and level stuff up: combat, espionage, engineering, and salvage. Right. And so I opened Mission Manual up, Mechahack Mission Manual, 1 year old. Happy birthday. There's one called Search and Rescue. So imagine it's like there's a title fight coming up. And so the ads are playing on TV that are, you know, like you said, this coming Sunday on Strike Team, what should you call it? Strike Watch. I like Strike Watch. I think that's what you said. Strike Watch. Because it's
Sunday.
They're literally calling it what it is. We're watching war on TV and nobody batted an eye, right? So Strike Watch. So next Sunday on Strike Watch is the big event. You've got to get it on pay-per-view. We're going to be doing the Search and Rescue, where we're going to, they have to help they're being deployed to evacuate Neo-Dominion civilians. The thing is, prior to that, leading up to that, these are not our heroes. There are some opening acts as well. They're going to be filming on Space Station Zura. There's a threat that hasn't been seen in centuries, the Virillians. That's a huge upcoming like premiere. Like aliens that haven't been seen in forever are being like teased. Now, this is in the same universe, mind you. It's light years away from these people, so they're not worried yet, right, that the Virillians are back or anything. So, but you can see kind of the general vibe of this particular Mecha Hack world. So you are doing this search and rescue for the Neo-Dominion, both of you. I guess you have mechs. I don't know. I know you don't have any characters or anything. I don't know how much you know this game. You don't have to roll dice, you know, but we're going to kind of, I guess bumble was the word, Kiel. But so search and rescue, really cool thing. Mecha Hack has these, so we need to save as many civilians as possible and clear the area of hostiles. But we also need to look good doing it, right? As Kiel pointed out, your sponsorships are on the line here. If you guys want to come up with some quick call signs, maybe. I know there's a.
Yeah, let's roll them.
Let's roll some call signs. I think that's a really good place to start. And I'm gonna keep this techno babble thing. Do you guys have that handy, or do you need me to find it? Or you can roll. Yeah.
Signs.
I got a 17 and a 2 for my call sign.
I think it's at the end. That's a good design, maybe. Here we go. So, Lloyd, you are Viper Zero.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
baby.
and Kiel, if you want to roll, I can give you.
That's a cool name.
You could be
Audience
Viper
will
1,
love
but that'll be
that.
confusing as heck.
Alright, I got a 1 and a 15.
Okay. So we're actually gonna do yours backward for no good reason. Oracle Alpha. So Viper Zero and Oracle Alpha.
Nice. Okay.
So the thing is, instead of the normal way we're doing it, you each have one module, let's say. I guess you would probably want it to be a gun, but none of these are really guns, right? Quake Generator, Siege Mode. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? I don't know.
The guns are separate to modules.
And that's the thing. I like the idea of like, what if you just had I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far. But so Viper Zero and Oracle Alpha
We
are
can
here.
roll a random module too. I think there's a number of them. There's like 6 in each one, right?
Yeah.
So we could roll
There's 7 and a couple.
2d6, 1 to see what table and 1 to see what your module is.
And we can get rid. That's true. That's true. I mean, look, this game is so easy. We're trying our best to say we're not going to play, and we're just slowly making characters step by step. Hope you guys are okay with that.
Well, that's the point. We just need just do like a basic starting sort of
So,
set
yes.
up character so that we can then
Right.
progress them like with this fast-paced progression idea.
My module is on the
Like that,
first table and it's the 5th one.
Okay. All right. So the first one is the offensive modules.
Baby.
So you got Siege Mode. As an action, roll your reactor die, add 2 damage to all ranged attacks, but disadvantage on mobility tests. So Viper Zero has Siege Mode.
Nice. I'm on the second table and the 5th module.
Okay, and so that one was defensive modules. And you got reflective shielding. And I love this because neither of these are like combat, really.
No.
Not directly. And so, do you want to just roll weapons? Do you each get a weapon, or maybe you get a generic weapon? I think I'm going to give you each the just like a regular roll.
Like, yeah, we can just have a light ranged.
Light
That's how it
ranged,
works,
I think
right?
is it.
Yeah.
Light ranged, I think. is
Audiences love close combat, right? Like if I'm
Oh,
trying to
yes.
get people excited, they would prefer like a chain sword or like
true.
something,
Yes.
So this is a good. But let's
Yes,
look
yeah.
at that a different way. Let's give each of you things that you will gain extra points for doing. So yes, audiences love close combat,
Yeah,
but let's be more specific. Have you played the recent Doom game? You know how like that's a good example of that, where they give you extra like a glory kill, do demons from behind, like that sort of thing. Where I'm like, all right, well, they want to see a reactor explosion. That's one of our things of another mech, right? You need to aim and hit their reactor and blow them up, and you get extra points for that. And one of you doing it will get you extra points within the mission. I don't know why. I do want you to compete a little bit, but like you said, not enough that you kill the other person on the first turn.
Totally.
And then let's say another thing they want to see is, like you said, a close combat, disable, which is the word they use to literally mean kill. You know what I mean? Everybody says disable as though they're not, these people aren't dying, but that's how it works. So, but this is a rescue mission. Neutralize, right? So this, though, is a rescue mission, but it's interesting because I don't know. We're going into this hard, and this evacuation has been planned for a while, and to some degree, what I feel like that means is somebody hired people to oppose you so that it could be filmed, right? Like, these are mercenaries that are wearing the other team's colors just so that there's drama. I mean, this is reality TV at its finest in the future here. So you are going to be, and so you can feel free to struggle or not struggle with that, but you are going to be jumping in and, what did we say? Saving civilians. Whew, we'll see if that
The
happens.
only show with real human lives at stake.
Right, exactly. Oh, I love it.
Steak,
But okay,
steak.
But okay, so and I think this is timeless, so you would definitely hear this because this is one of my favorite phrases for commercials like that. We'll sell you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. Because really, we're just killing these people. Okay, so I've lost my mission. I'm sorry, I gotta go find it again. Here we go. Search and rescue. which is by Gwen Red. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? Reed. I never actually knew.
Gwen Reed, yeah.
Reed, okay, Reed. I'm like, that's one of those, Reed. I've been saying it wrong. But okay. So the shining city of Caddy has been hit by a massive void maw attack. With the main threat taken care of, the Neo Dominion have reached out to anyone nearby aid in coordinating search and rescue operations for the ruins of the city. So in parentheses, what you see here is that the void maw have been released on this city. And you, the contestants, effectively, have been sent here to save the civilians. Well, they don't actually call them anything in the official verbiage, but collateral damage is what most people refer to them as. Your fire team deploys to the Narm district, home to the now collapsed Spire Tech research lab and final resting place of the kaiju that terrorized the city. This was one of probably the early seasons where they just released monsters on cities and saw who fought them. But the vastness of the destruction means resources are in short supply. Work with haste and care to save as many as you can. That couldn't be more tongue-in-cheek. Anytime you hear a description of how caring or loving or empathetic you should be, it's really just saying, don't piss off the audience, whatever you do. Anytime somebody says be nice to the people there, really what they're saying is don't tank the ratings. But okay, so we're going to start off, and you have limited resources, and you need to first scan the area to pinpoint some survivors. So I need we used to write, man, some of them have it, but systems. So I haven't run this game. So Lloyd, you're going to run this while I play GM. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So if you could do a system check for me, and you can roll or decide if you,
Typically we would need stats for this to function.
So decide if you succeed or fail, right? I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think,
so it's 50-50.
oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we just roll we have 10 in every stat.
Yeah, perfect. That's
I think
because,
11,
like you said, it's so
it has
simple.
to be under.
Oh yeah, 11. Yeah.
11,
You know what
okay.
I mean? 10 would be, yeah. So we've got 11.
Not if you can roll 0, Kiel.
Yeah.
So we
Watch me.
It's a programming joke, right?
superhero drop from the sky carrier and like destroying a block worth of houses each when we land, and then we'll like both get up, I guess, and then do like a mech like fist bump in advance, and do some dabs or something in advance of the mission taking place, and then he'll like Viper Zero will like and then like begin typing. Like, why would he be typing? And like the keys are the size of a car. So,
I love it.
to bring up the little computer that'll show him like life signs or
I
whatever.
love that it's mech size. You're saying the mech is
Yeah.
doing this. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so
So
the audience can see it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's come on. That's just production 101.
It's a totally superfluous piece of technology. Like he has a scanner in his,
in his HUD, like
cockpit,
inside.
obviously.
Yeah. But it's just for the viewers. Exactly.
And yeah, so I did succeed. I got a 7, which would be a success. So it'll like bling. Bling,
So you find some survivors in the rubble, but they are trapped. There is you realize with a scan that there is a building precariously, couldn't say all of those letters in the same word at the same time, leaning one against the other. Your landing as strongly as you did certainly didn't help, but that's no fault of yours. So what you have to do is give me a test power to see if you can, without killing the civilians that you've now located, move this building so that they can safely get out without, maybe they're on a higher floor. They need to go down and get out, whatever. So yes, test power for me to help. And Kiel, you can help if you want. I don't know what your character's doing. You can give me some role play.
Yeah, you do it. Don't fear, civilians. We have arrived.
And they
Like
know the
booming
story.
and
Right, yeah, they're just
that's-
screaming and running.
That's a fail. I rolled 16, so I rolled above.
Okay, so you're pushing on this building, and it's beginning to crumble. It was sort of one piece, but now some of it's falling, and you're able to kind of hold it up a little bit. Roll again for me.
All right.
We see Oracle Alpha's like points counter go into the negative for each like person that dies. Right?
Yeah, you see him counting up. Yeah, right, and it's just ticking. There's like a sound. Yeah, yeah.
On the overlay. That's a success. That's a 9.
Okay, and so you.
Quick side question: do we get? I know you as the GM, you'll hand them out, but do we get for this fast-paced type thing? Do we get chits for like every success we roll, or
I was
something
thinking so.
else.
I was going to say, yes, you are definitely going to get some for this, but I was going to try and make it a bit sort of multi-leveled, right? We're going to focus on you for a minute. You're going to do a few things in a row. So it does, if you miss the first one, it doesn't feel like, all right, well, you're done. I'm going to go talk to Lloyd, who's succeeding, and just, as again, not even Mecha Hack or anything, just kind of making that up. So yes, probably you'll get some. And really, you're kind of just giving out, it's like Skyrim. Anything you do, you get experience, like it's the same. If you do something, I'm like, well, you're getting some, because later we'll figure it out. Like, I don't know, that helps. So yes. So I imagine that you're, trying to hold up, like you said, Lloyd, your counter's going down, but now people are flooding out of the building, and the other counter of like how many people he saved is going up, and it's not nearly as many that have died, but you're getting a couple, right? And as it's going, it's not as bad as it would have been. The building begins to teeter. You likely just move out of the way, right? You realize that this is a lost cause. It begins to crumble, and the whole thing begins coming down. The red number, right, it's counting up quickly, and then suddenly, like, 4 digits get added, like, so fast, as, like, a block is demolished, and, something, and you're just like, oh. And, you already know that it's interesting, the collateral damage, as they say, is not so much what really loses you ratings, but it's not good, right? It's like being the bad guy wrestler. You have to be that kind of person. You're like, no, I don't care about the civilians, and you maybe aren't. You are or aren't that person, that's up to you, but, you tried. But so for that, maybe you would get, we haven't actually, we've done this wrong. I don't know what chit to give you now, because we haven't.
Should we just keep it simple to, like, with the fast pace, like, D4 for every success, and just, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, like, which combat, espionage, engineering, or salvage, that wasn't any of those, okay. And I'm like, well, that's the problem. Suddenly I don't have a category that it goes in, and that was, the first thing we're bumping up into. Which is okay.
Salvaging lives, I guess.
Well, and I guess, you know what, and I think that's a good point. What I need to do is, and I forgot about this, I need to separate, it doesn't need to be that concrete. I'm going to give you chits because you did stuff. The chit is not what you did to get it, it's what you're going to spend it on. Let's put it that way, at least for now. So...
Okay, yeah.
So, I'm going to give you would get a combat chit and one of your choice, let's say that. You know what I mean? Okay. So now it's that sort of thing where you're going, okay, well, I know what I want. I want, and I guess you keep track of that because I don't know what your choice is.
Yes, yeah, I will, yeah.
And so you would have things, so we could, if you wanted, talk about what your queue would look like and what it would take if we want to, like, really do this. Does that make sense? So, like, we would give you a couple things kind of the way we did.
Yes. Yeah, we should probably, like, make just one queue each, right?
Like one item, yeah. So really, if you want, like, like, what's a cool thing you want, that you want to try to use? Like, some kind of weapon or something?
The weapon quality is always fun.
Oh, yeah, right. Weapon quality is a really good one.
Again, like, thinking of, the audience here, making things as bloody as possible. Let's have a look. I want to get an offensive module. Oh, chest beam.
Oh yeah, right. Like just like yeah.
I want to go for a quake generator.
Yeah, right. As cool as it. Oh yeah. Listen, man. Maybe you're that person. We don't know who you are yet. That's okay. It's all about the points, and you don't lose that many points for collateral damage. That's how it works, So, but okay, so Viper Zero, I closed mission manual, but we can think of another thing for you to do. So, you're here saving the civilians, and the Void Maw are attacking. And right now, you see some, a bunch rushing into a subway, an underground portion, and so. Basically, they're not necessarily engaging you, but you need to attack them. Think of this more like attack rolls, but they're going to be like skill checks, where we're not going to like stop and take turns and stuff. Just stuff's going to happen, And so, basically, what do? You see them going for the subway. Basically, you could do something else. You could, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of freeform.
Yeah. So he'll rush over in that direction. He doesn't have a great weapon currently, so he's done the scan. He can see where the civilians are and aren't. So to an abandoned building, he'll pull like a massive concrete steel rebar out of one of the buildings and use that as a sort of like whacking stick.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So he'll like punch his way into a building as he's running past and like pull it out, leave it in the dust behind him, and rush over to that subway station. He'll just start like wailing on the aliens.
Okay. Yeah.
And like kicking them away from the subway. So he's trying to do things like knock one up and then like knock it again, like that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So here's the thing. Perfect example. Perfect time for a close combat disable. One of the special quests you need to do. But so here, this as the person in the mech. So like you said, you're hot dogging it. You know what I mean? You're like you're getting some. You're kicking them. These aren't really. These enemies are not dangerous to you. They are dangerous to the people. So and so what is the one that is going to be the clip that they use? What is the one that like unlocks the achievement? Tell me about that.
Yeah, there is an alpha beast among them, which like if he were on foot would be an unstoppable god machine, like killing thing. But to me, it's just like a small dog in my huge mech. But it's got tentacles and all sorts of nasty shit. And and all the other beasts are like scrambling around it or whatever and trying to protect it. And he'll just like step on a bunch of them and then like take the rebar and he'll like point into the direction he's gonna fling it, and then he'll like it'll like like in the huge mech voice, and he'll like and see if he can like launch it. And he is aiming. He has a scan of the area. There's like a lake, somewhere or a pond or something. He's trying to knock it into that pond with his shot.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that you do that. You scream, like you said. It pauses, and there's reverb on your voice. Everything goes away, and it's just your comms coming through the broadcast. You scream for, and it does like a Matrix style, like 360 drone view of it pauses, and you're about to swing, and you hit it at each point of contact. 1, 2, 3. It shows, and finally now it cuts away. And you see like an arc, like it was a golf shot. And you see it like following the arc. And it's like, okay, it's 300 meters to hit the lake. And you get it just like right in the middle of the lake. Like right in, basically swish. I don't know. And and that's the one. That's like the one that they clip, the GIF that people are sending on the Mecha Hack equivalent of WhatsApp, of the close combat disable. So for that, you would get even, extra experience. So I'd give you 2 combat chits, and then again one of your choice, whatever. So
and the crowd, I imagine there's like stadiums that get filled just with viewing things, so these giant screens in the middle, and the crowd, it cuts to the crowd just just ravenous and spilling popcorn everywhere,
exactly,
backstopping each other.
And there's bets on it and what's gonna happen, side bets on just like there's so much going on. And so
Viper Zero is usually pretty good at these shots, I gotta say. He's got a pretty good hitting average, and they bring up for like stats of all the times that he's like done this.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Previous clips, like when you've done it with different creatures.
Oh, yes.
And they're like on technique. That's pretty good stance. Perfect technique.
Yeah, and I love it on the screen, like a little diagram pops up of like a human and how big this like dog like animal is. And then like another one of like how big the mech is, and you're like, well, there's just no chance, And so that was just the sort of precursor to really the rest of the creatures that are on their way. And so some larger, much larger kaiju-sized void moths start actually breaking up out of the ground, especially with all the shaking and everything that's been going on. There, some that are more your size, maybe half your size, coming out of the ground to come fight you. So still kind of an even battle with 6 or 7 of them. But you're getting a little further away from having a good time, and a little more to you might start sweating, We were going to talk about what went in your queue. I guess we could do that. Like what things you can unlock.
Yeah, so I have 2 for combat, and I put my optional one in there too, because I want to try and roll to get turn this stick into like a plasma axe or something, like some sort of,
Nice.
And I love that. Yeah. Weapon. Okay, and I love the idea of finding just a random thing and upgrading it, especially. Yeah, that's amazing.
And I think it probably looks like because he's got the requisite points, he just like holds it aloft, and then there's like some sort of like it like zooms through a bunch of buildings and then like attaches to the stick or something, like.
Oh yeah, okay, yes, yeah. So it reminds me of like Hunger Games, where you could have like a donation or something, right? Where it's like that, where you earn it. So in this case, it's like it goes to you, and so people know like, oh, he's this close to getting his arc or whatever. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
You got the commentators that are like, well, he could go for the combat axe, which is a pretty traditional choice, but he does have enough points potentially to get the plasma axe, and that's always a real hit with the fans at home.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. And so what about you, Kiel? What do you have an idea of what you want to unlock here?
Question is, Jay, will he get it in time before the next wave of kaiju come along?
Right? Yeah.
Oracle Alpha is going to climb up one of the buildings, like scale the side of one of the skyscrapers here to get a better vantage point, and to looks like Oracle Alpha is going to go in for a classic high risk maneuver here. Going to the top of the ropes here. Like going up to the top of one of the buildings, like to potentially, like, yeah,
and probably do like your signature move. Yeah, like I don't know what it is, but again, now I'm getting big wrestling vibes. Yeah.
Just, like, dabbing uncontrollably.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so I guess they'll be there waiting for the next wave to come. Like clearly we've just evacuating civilians.
Yeah. So and so a few smaller kaiju have showed up, right? And so what do you have? You have your light weapon. Is there another weapon you wanted, or something else you wanted to? You mentioned the Quake generator.
I was looking at but that's an offensive module. I meant to be looking at weapon qualities.
Yes, right.
Yeah, but
that was the whole deal.
I'm gonna go for like let's go throne. So I guess similarly, let's go corrosive. That'd be.
So did you say? Can we talk real quick? Did you say throne at first?
I did say throne at first.
How do you feel about something like a like a Thor's hammer, right? Think that in any other shape. You know what I mean? Like, don't think throne. Think like Lloyd did, like plasma. You know what I mean? And you can do corrosive if you want, but I didn't want you to feel constrained by throne, because imagine if it was like a double-sided axe that you spun really fast and threw, and it went like a frisbee or like a boomerang and came back. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It can be that.
I can flavor it. Let's flavor it like I can fire off my fist or something like that.
Perfect.
Right?
I love it. Yes, you were just like, yeah.
It doesn't come back around. It like gets fired off on a chain, and then it like gets reeled back in or something. And I know there is a separate like grappling module or something, but
that's yes.
Just for
because that is what I want you to be able to describe that about your mech, and me be able to go, yes, you can have that, especially because we're playing the way we are. That doesn't hurt, right? But I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
But okay, so go ahead.
So I've got a combat chit, and I've put another one in engineering for the other one that I got. Do we want to?
I would love to.
Like, do I? Yeah, like how? Sure. Can I cash them in now to get that upgrade?
I think we should. I think I would love to just have you both do it and kind of go through what it sort of would look like in the little bit of time here. Let me say first. Do you have a really hard out at 8:00? Either of you?
No.
Okay, because basically just that's fine. Basically, drop when you have to. I plan to try to end at 8, but like we might finish at 8 and go to 8:05 saying goodbye, sort of thing. You know, I'll be very respectful of time. Just wanted to.
I'm good today.
Get that out first.
I could go till 1:15.
Okay, perfect.
Today,
yeah.
That's okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what would I do now? I have the 3 dice, so I would roll them, and I would need a number to get the thing I want, right? Like
yes.
I would need a certain. Okay.
So here's how I imagine it working. It has a die attached to it. In this case, we'll say a D6. And so for each one you roll, you would do this sort of as part of the group. You would roll one and tell us what you got, as though it were like a skill check, you know. But and I'm going to try to describe this part. I haven't explained it to anybody yet, so hopefully it will make sense and I say it in the right order. When you roll, you can choose to take the average of that or half of that die, right? So if it was a D6, you could always take 3. But you have to roll the first time. The thing is, you can roll again, but the number that you're guaranteed on each subsequent turn goes down 1. So if it was a D10, you could always take 5, but you roll first and go, I got 4. I can take my 5. Or I can roll again, but then I can only take my 4. Maybe I'll get a 1 right, so you might hit a streak of bad luck. So there's always a guarantee, but it erodes. So basically knowing that, and let's say you have D8s. I don't know, did I say what they were already? I don't know. Let's say they're D8s and you cash them in. We'll do one of you at a time, but you can do it relatively quickly, but we'll just sort of talk about what you get and whatever. You know, go through it like, I don't know, like a board game. So, Kiel, if you want to do yours, does that all make sense?
Yeah, totally. So, what's the number you're setting for my thrown weapon quality? How many points do I need?
So, let's say it's 15, and because we did this, you know, so truncated, obviously there'd be longer time, you'd have more XP, whatever, but let's say it's 15 you need of the one you chose, or maybe 10 of combat and 1 of the other one you chose, like 5 of the other one you chose.
Okay, cool.
Right?
Cool. Yeah, so I'll wait then until I have more dice, because I've got a D8 in combat and a D8 in engineering. So.
Well, so imagine, so because we're so short on time, what if I gave you more chits now so we could turn them in and just do the stuff
cool.
just to go through it?
Yeah,
right?
let's do that.
So imagine you have three
perfect.
more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Do them however you want. Same for you,
Yeah.
I guess, Lloyd. You know what I mean? Like, throw a couple more on there.
Yeah, I got 3 combats, so I think I've got to...
Oh, and that should work anyway. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing is you would, of course, again, different circumstances, you would do it whether or not you had them. You would turn them in and apply them because you would want to kind of see how close you got. You know, this would be your chance to do that. You might unlock it, you might not, you know. That would be the other thing.
Sweet. So I will then. I'm just going to take the mid numbers. So.
Oh, okay, because of the
12
amount you
combat.
need. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That works. It wasn't a perfect playtest example, but I that's okay.
No. I mean, that's a good point. Let's roll up. So I've got 3d8 for combat. Let's roll in. Okay, so that's 15. Awesome.
Perfect, right? Yeah, and okay, that's a good point actually.
Take that.
And I forgot, but that is actually the rule: is whether or not you are going to take it, and I think that's part of why I did it. You will always roll it first because you always have a chance to get higher.
Yeah.
You might go, I want the 5, but I go, yeah, but
true.
give yourself a chance of getting the 8, because some people might just fall into the pattern of going, I'll just take it, and I'm like, no. It's there so that you can't get screwed, but it's not there to just take, you know.
Yeah. So even if I rolled a 1, I could still go, no, okay, I'm going to take the 5 that I. Yeah.
I guess it does encourage you to always wait till you can average it. So you wouldn't make the choice unless the average will give you the thing, you know?
Oh, yes, right. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Where you're more willing to take the average if it's the 5 you need. You're like, well, I only need that 5. I'll just spend. I'm basically just spending the chit. That's a very good point. And I think there's a lot to be said about
if
that.
you don't get it, right? If you roll it and you don't get the number, your chits are gone.
Yes, like if you roll, you'll always get at least 1, you know. But sorry, go ahead, Kiel. What?
Because that's the thing as well. Like, so it would be. Yeah, the chits are gone. You've converted them to that XP. That XP still counts towards that queue. It's just that you still need that 1 more or whatever it is. So
gotcha. Yeah. So if I rolled low, I would put it in my stat, and then next time I get a dice, I can add it too.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And and then, again, that's more the
so
system.
You don't,
and that's
lose the bonus. It's just that you took a chance at trying to get the reward for that now.
I see. And that's my fault. I think I misunderstood, but totally, I see what you mean.
So I actually rolled a 20, which might mean I get a step up from Plasma Axe. Would that be a thing? Like, would I be able to see, or in my head have, okay, it's 15 for this, but if I roll higher, I could get an even better thing.
So I do like that. More of the way it was designed was you had multiple things, and I sort of described it, and it's like important to understand the way it works to see, but it's non-linear is the important thing. It came from a Victoria 3, you know, like a Paradox game. The way they do it where it's like multiple things in the queue, but because some of them have maximums that can be applied to them at any one time, it allows you to gate it so that you couldn't stack and get the one thing you want, but instead almost forces a slow trod of it and spreading it out. And we didn't really touch on that, but there would be a maximum you could put in each turn, and so it would instead overflow to your next one, you know, and you'd have other ones in there. But after this playtest, like, that was the sort of agnostic thing we came up with. I see a lot in the talent tree sort of thing, you know, where you're spending it to maybe get an extra bonus on your... Like, I can see a lot of mileage there as well. It just didn't happen to be this one. Yeah,
it gives you a reason to risk rolling, you know?
Yes, exactly.
If you can do better than you thought, like, it gives you a reason to risk it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'll hold up the rebar, and then the Plasma Axe will be, I don't know, space dropped or something. Well, right, like the attachments or...
Exactly, and that's a good point, right? We'll describe how it happens, and I like that, where, you know, in a normal situation, we might describe it a little more. But exactly, you raise it aloft, and it comes, and maybe, you know, there's even another one of those void maw creatures comes, you know, just almost like it missed the first ass beating, and it came around for the second one, you know, and you just, like, with the new plasma thing, you know, just destroy it, and everybody goes wild. I imagine you can hear and potentially control how much you hear the cheering of the crowd in your own, you know, headset as a mech. Some people like the silence and they just want their comms of their support team, but some people need the rush of the crowd, you know.
Yeah, he like hacks at the various creatures in 2 upward slashes, and it makes a big V of alien blood for Viper on one of the buildings.
Yeah, exactly, right? You practiced that so many times, you know, you've done it. It's just like, and honestly,
Viper V, Bob, we did it again.
There it goes. classic. That's his hallmark, really. You always get one. And so, Kiel, you rolled as well. What did you unlock? We'll do a scene for yours as well.
Yes, yeah. So I unlocked the throne weapon quality for light melee. So I think instead of the because there is actually a separate like module or something for like rocket fists. So
yeah.
Instead of that, I'll make it like an actual weapon that I have. So maybe it's like
I'm happy with the fists. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's say it's like knuckle dusters, right? Like these.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like knuckle dusters that like it can, I don't know, that it can throw, and then like I guess it works some kind of like a weird boomerang batarang thing. The alpha rang.
I love that. I was wondering if so let's say this. What if they were fists that you got that had knuckle dusters on them that you could fire? But here's the better part, because really, like when I imagine knuckle dusters, I do imagine just classic ones. But really, I love any that say something on them, and it's so ripe for what they say because it's like marketing and everything we've laid out. So I'm like, I there's a part of me that just however it works, I want you to just have 2 words across either, and those need to be the name of your fists or just something. I don't know. I would love to see you play with that.
Oracle and Alpha, but Oracle is spelled ORYKL.
Okay, yeah, I love it. Oh
Oracle
man.
and Alpha, and so I guess they always have them on there, like that's their light melee weapon. But on this top of this building, after they're like dabbing on control and they just like hold both. The mech holds both arms up, and like this module comes down and like connects on and turns it into like, I guess like it's not spikes, but I guess the words, right? Like Alpha and Oracle are like then turned into, I don't know, what would it be like these brands, I guess, like these glowing hot brands.
Oh, okay, yeah, I love that. Where they're like constantly glowing. So when you hit stuff, it's like the
yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So so that's what that looks like, I guess.
And so that means with these small aliens running around, you could grab one and just like press it, you know what I mean, and then drop kick it or like punt it, into the same lake that or Viper Zero.
Maybe by that point, like the this next wave is like swarming up the building that they're on, and so they start like just as the upgrades they start like spilling to the top, and it's like just like knocking them off, and then it gets back into one corner because there's so many, but then just
right, you see
brand, and it like goes and smacks one off and comes and connects again, and then fires off again, and just
you see it like do it in very quick succession, going out and coming back like spring-loaded fists, but they're little rockets each time. I love that. So yes, we'll start wrapping up, and obviously we went through that very quickly, but even just that little bit of seeing it and getting to do it in the game gave me a better idea of how it can work. And Mecha Hack is just so ripe for modification, and I think it's a great way to show people that it's so easy to say, well, no, we'll do it this way, because we didn't break anything. We had a great time. We didn't exactly use the rules, and we made a few of them up, and we just used random stats, and still it was so much fun. And I think that's the important thing, is it's easy.
Menus there to pick from, basically.
Yes, exactly. And so this was really cool. I have plans for what I'm sillily calling my Mecha Hack, because I'm like, that's what it is. I'm like, I'm taking a game that was a hack of another game that was a hack of another game and hacking it. So I'm like, all right, we're getting so many levels deep here, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It's there's a lot you can do with it. But I don't know, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to talk about next time? Anything you're curious to look at? I don't know, anything like that from you guys?
Yeah, this is really fun. I think this was a great starting point for a play test, and like to sort of see where your progression queue mechanic, like when like integrated with an existing system, like how that can go. And it'd be cool to do a similar thing with other systems to see how, because that's the idea, right? That it can be used alongside any other system. Or even like we kind of alluded to earlier, like just you even using progression queue as a core and just putting a few little lightweight things around that as like a game,
It's just like one little piece, a module.
Lots of possibilities.
It's like one of the things I really like about Harbinger is that you can choose from like 30 different talents you know?
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
make a character that's very different every time. And I think this has a similar sort of feeling where, you know, you're starting as the wretch in Dark Souls. You're starting as like the worst possible like version of a mech, and then you're sort of gradually building up to be the thing you want to be. And I think that's interesting, and it's got like it works for a lot of games, I think, you know.
Yeah,
often
yeah.
you start off in a game and you're like, I'm a god already, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm like level 1, but I'm still already like a professional adventurer or mech pilot or whatever it is. And so this is a good way of being like, no, you're really starting out at 0, and you got to figure it out as you go and like do these certain things to like get better at the things you want to be good at, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that aspect of it, and especially on a longer time scale, I feel like if it can become a natural part of the game, it can feel really fun to constantly unlock stuff and be doing it, and be almost like a Hades build, where like sometimes you chose a weapon, right? You get some choices, but then you go into the game and you go, well, I chose this thing, and like sometimes you get the best build ever with the weapon you hate the most. You know, and I'm like, I've never done better, and I never choose it, but I love that, where it's like, well, this time you got the plasma axe, but next time it would be something else, and you'd start out with, you know, and I love that variability. Also, Mecha Hack is already great for this, but it's the sort of thing that I like to think you can really sit down on a convention and play, because you go, no, it's literally a blank chassis. Now choose 3 things to start, and then you'll constantly be adding things, you know. And it's even easier to play because you're like, oh, and how does the gun work? I just got one. It's like playing a tutorial in a video game, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You literally start with nothing on your skill bar, and then you're just adding bits in the inventory and your skills and that. Yeah, totally. Having played it, and like in that example of being able to have it as like a pick up and play thing at a convention or something like that. I think having a bit more clarity on, or making sure we actually sort of set our cues before we get into the gameplay, probably, so we know what we want to be working towards ahead of time.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure it's clear, which obviously this was an impromptu play test at the end of our
totally.
stream, but having that clarity on how to get the chits, so that, you know, me as a player, I'm like, all right, cool, I know that my cues, I need a lot of combat chits, so I'm going to do a lot of combat stuff to make sure I'm generating the right stuff, and making sure, that's really clear and communicated how to get the types of chits that you want, basically.
Yeah. And I imagine a lot of it would be, I imagine it like inspiration, in that I would constantly be hanging them out, again, kind of for everything, because it's like, I don't know, I would want it to, I would have an idea of how many I could give out and not literally unlock everything in your queue the next time, right? Like I need to be careful somewhat, but that would be the goal, is to know, well, I have like 20 I can give out. Whereas, like, for example, I love, it came partly from the idea of inspiration, because I love that, being able to give somebody something. I don't personally love what it does, but my favorite part of inspiration is when somebody goes, you can have this. I want to call you out, and I want to give you a mechanical thing, you know? I'm like, what if I just did that the whole time? You know, for many things you did. Again, if you're failing and things aren't going well, you're not necessarily getting them, you know? And I have some ideas to keep the group on track. I don't know. I think there's a lot of question marks, but I just like the idea that we can make it a part of combat. And then we've built a ridiculous framing device around it, you know, where you get it on the fly. I love that too. So, yeah, Mecha Hack, such a good game. Guys, play Mecha Hack if you don't already. If you haven't already.
So good. So good.
Yeah. So, yeah, unless you guys have anything else, I think that's it. I'll remember how to go to my end screen, mute us, and then say goodbye, everybody. So, this has been James. Lloyd joined us. Kiel joined us. I guess we can do goodbyes. That's always a good thing. Kiel, say goodbye to the nice people.
Bye. Thanks for having me, James, and great to hang with you as always, James and Lloyd. And thanks to everyone for hanging out in the chat. This was a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing what else. Seeing the development of the progression queue system.
Awesome. All right, Lloyd.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to jump in for the last little bit and kick the door in and just do some shouting.
Yeah, awesome.
Where my skill set lies, you know.
It was perfect.
It's interesting. It's got some stuff going on. I think it's inspiring on some other ideas too, I think.
Awesome.
Cool, you know?
And that's my favorite, because I like also to be very forthcoming about where my ideas come from. I've told you multiple games, you know, this is by Eclipse, Starforge, somebody mentioned. I've been working on that recently, you know, and what was the other one? Victoria 3, reading the development diaries. Like, yes, that's how we're, I love that. So, yeah. So thanks so much, both of you, for joining me. And we will see everybody next time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the chat as well.